start off with a conditioned apology. For those that were offended, for those that thought us debating whether the Mets or the Yankees were the better team, for those that took that as somehow jinxing both of our baseball teams this weekend, leading to 3-game sweeps, we apologize. So if you're a Met fan who blames me for being, hey, the Mets are better than the Yankees, I'm sorry. If you're a Yankee fan who blames Sean for the Yankees getting swept because he opened his big mouth and said the Yankees were better than the Mets, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but...
I'm sorry.
We're sorry. Now that we got that out of the way, let's have a very important discussion regarding our two baseball teams. There's a difference between real issues and, hey, that's baseball, it happens. Okay? Big difference. Losing 3 in a row, in the Yankees' case to the Boston Red Sox, while it sucks, it happens. In the Mets' case, losing 3 games in a row at home to the Tampa Bay Rays, it sucks, and it happens. So what we should do right now to start is to kind of peel away the differences between, hey, that's baseball, it happens, and whoa, that's a real concern. So let me start with Aaron Judge. Can I start with him?
Yes, not a concern.
Not a concern. 1 for 12 with 9 strikeouts. The one hit, obviously, being a cinematic home run against Garrett Crochet on Friday.
In the ninth inning.
To tie the game up.
Right.
But Aaron Judge, of course, has a history of struggling in that big moment. That is that's baseball, it happens, or real concern?
No, I think that's a baseball, it happens type of thing. He's been so unbelievable this season. It's hard to look at one series, a 3-game stretch, and say, I'm concerned because it's a big moment. Because look, I understand it's the rival. We had this discussion a week ago. Who is the biggest rival of the Yankees? And I think what do we fall on? The Red Sox? Is it the Red Sox?
I was out that day. It's always going to be the Red Sox.
Right, but so if it is the Red Sox, was a regular season game before the All-Star break a big moment? I don't think so. So I'm going to say that's baseball, Evan.
That's baseball. I agree with you. Like, especially because the one hit he got was, let's not forget, I know it turned into a loss for a myriad of reasons, which we'll get to. That was majestic. Like, he's facing Garrett Crochet, who has shut them down all day long, and in this cinematic moment, he hits a bomb that I have not seen land yet. Like, the ball went over the Green Monster, and there's actually no physical evidence that the baseball ever landed. So if he was 1 for 12 with 9 strikeouts, and let's say the one hit was a 2-out, nobody on, bloop down the right field line, maybe you could convince me. But I look at it as a guy who's had a great year who ran into a very tough 3-game series against the Red Sox.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a big deal for Judge himself. Peaks and valleys. He wasn't going to hit 400 all year long, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but him not hitting is still a big deal when it comes to the other parts of this team.
Because of the rest of the offense? They scored 4 runs in this series against Boston, and it was pointed out on the S broadcast yesterday, an amazing stat that I told my dad, and he's like, that means nothing to me. So you tell me if it means something. It's the fewest runs they've ever scored in a 3-game series at Fenway since, like, 1915, and Babe Ruth pitched for the Red Sox in the finale of that series.
Again, feels like an aberration. However, we saw 2 years ago when Judge got hurt running into that stupid curb in L.A. that the team tailed off at points offensively without him. Last year, whenever Judge slumped, including that first month of the year, remember when he didn't hit, they at least had a guy like Juan Soto who helped pick the team up. It was very alarming to see nobody in this Yankee lineup truly make up for the Judge struggles.
Yeah, that one I'll actually buy as a real issue because despite the Yankees putting up really good offensive statistics this season, what we saw over the weekend kind of reminds you of stuff we do see in October, where their bats just go completely quiet. And they went quiet. Outside of Crochet, who's been awesome this year, Hunter Dobbins, other than being, a poor guy whose dad lied to him his entire life, he's not that good. Same thing with Bayo. So they didn't exactly get shut down by Koufax and Drysdale. So I will give you that the Yankees scoring a combined 4 runs in 3 games against the Boston Red Sox, that could be a real concern.
That's the bigger concern to me, honestly, because it's the narrative from 2 years ago when Aaron Judge had a ridiculous his other ridiculous season when he hit 62 home runs. When he didn't hit, they didn't score. And so it's a different makeup. It's a different roster. There's no, Aaron Hicks on this team anymore or those wasted I don't know, salvage type players that they had. Joey Gallo, etc. So it's not that kind of team, but that's what it felt like 2 years ago when Aaron Judge didn't hit and nobody else hit. It was, you could chalk it up to the team actually not being constructed very well. That's not the case this year.
Now, we've got more Yankee real issues versus that's baseball, it happens, but let's jump to the Mets. The New York Mets pitched like garbage this weekend. They got a really good start from Clay Holmes on Friday, unfortunately, and we didn't realize this until after the fact, but Clay came out of his previous start not feeling great. So Carlos Mendoza put a pitch count of 85 on him, which is why he was pulled after 5 innings on Friday night. And the bad pitching started with Paul Blackburn, who, by the way, re-enters the Met rotation in a couple of days against Atlanta. Paul Blackburn, you know what, it all over himself. Max Kranick, the same thing. Then on Saturday, Tyler McGill was atrocious. And then yesterday, Griffin Canning was atrocious. The Mets starting pitching has been awesome this season. But is that a concern moving forward?
To me, it is, because it's not as if we're talking like with Aaron Judge. He's had a great season. He's had a great career. We can count on him, at least in the regular season. These are upstartish type names for you if you're the Mets. We don't know what Paul Blackburn's going to be like. Griffin Canning has had a great season, but there's no long-term history of him being outstanding. And so I think it's more of a concern for the pitching for the Mets than it is for the hitting with the Yankees, simply because this is their first year of us believing or watching them go through this level of success. And now you wonder if it's sustainable.
So here's the reality. Am I concerned about Tyler McGill? Absolutely. If you look back at his last 8 starts, he's pitched to an ERA of 5.5. And that just may be who Tyler McGill is.
Right.
Griffin Canning got off to a wonderful start this year. And outside of the Dodger game a few starts ago where he threw 6 scoreless innings, he also has come back to being maybe the guy he was in Anaheim. So I'm concerned about them. 100%. I'm concerned about what Tyler McGill is and what Griffin Canning is. But here's what I would warn you about, and here's what I would tell my fellow Met fan about concerns over those two guys. Coming into the season, Tyler McGill was not going to be in the rotation. Coming into the season, Griffin Canning maybe was going to be in the rotation. So this is about Sean Manaea.
Right.
This is about Frankie Montas. This is about Clay Holmes, hopefully just having a hiccup from his non-recovery from his Colorado start. Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning are not guys the Mets should have to rely on in the second half of the year. So am I concerned about them individually? Sure. That the pixie dust may be rubbing off. But the Mets shouldn't have to rely on those two guys in the second half of the season.
But now you're going to have to rely on Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea, who haven't pitched all season long.
Correct.
So that's the worry. The Clay Holmes thing, I'm not actually worried about. I know Colorado it does numbers on your body. I told you the story when I was out there last summer, and it was 105 degrees, and I got dehydrated, and I passed out, right? As a healthy individual, just because of you're not used to the atmosphere and the not being a mile above sea level, your body just doesn't recover the same way. So this Clay Holmes thing feels like an anomaly. The pitch count, 85 or whatever it was, he ended up pitching on over the weekend. But to me, that's just an anomaly. Clay Holmes is the least of the worries right now.
And it really helped that his start that he made on Friday was damn good.
Right.
It's just that they were extra cautious by taking him out early. I think Clay Holmes is certainly worthy keeping an eye on because he's now going into territory he's not used to.
Right.
Throwing many more innings than he has in a very long time. But I do think the back of the Met rotation, you should be concerned about Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning. The good news is, or the potential good news is, both guys could be replaced in the rotation in the next 2.5 weeks. Because Sean Manaea is scheduled to walk through that door. We'll see about Frankie Montas. I know he has struggled big time in his rehab starts, but those two guys were never supposed to be relied upon, and even looking at the Mets now, shouldn't be relied upon. Now, let me jump back to the Yankees. All year long, I want to couch this, all year long, the New York Yankees have been better than they were last year when it comes to fundamentals, when it comes to overall defense, and when it comes to base running. Last year, Aaron Boone tried to defend the undefendable when he would say, hey, our base running hasn't been that bad. And yet every metric told you that he was BSing you. Okay, so I want that out there before we go in to what happened over the weekend. This season, the Yankee base running has mostly been good.
Right. Or we just haven't paid attention to it.
No, it's been good. I won't even buy that. I pay a lot of attention to it, and I also look at the numbers like they've been good at it. I can't just let it be, well, they suck. It's like, it kind of reminds me of some of the talk around Pete Alonso's defense. Pete made that big error. He must suck defensively. Not really. And I'd say the same thing about the Yankee base running. I don't think they've had a bad year. Head up their ass. I was about to say ass up the head. Either one. They haven't done that this season. With that said, what happened on Saturday with Jason Dominguez and what happened on Sunday with Ben Rice essentially contributed to them losing these games.
Of course.
They scored 4 runs in 3 days, and especially the one that really killed me was the Dominguez one in the 7th, because here the Yankees are rallying. They put it all together. They got 2 on and 2 out on Saturday night with Trent Grisham up in a 4-2 game, and Jason Dominguez doesn't have any idea what the count is, how many outs. He's confused.
Right.
So, real concern that the base running blunders of a year ago are coming back, or hey, look, it happens. It's baseball.
It's not baseball because it's a knucklehead, I guess, moment for Jason Dominguez. But I can see how it happened. The problem is when it happened. That's why it feels like it's more egregious than it actually is because of what you were talking. The rally, they were right there. You took yourself out of a chance to give yourself a chance, but that's just a young player losing awareness. I can't over worry about that because you haven't seen it. It's not like this is something that is consistent and every single week or every other game you see Jason Dominguez doing something boneheaded like this. That's not the case. So I'm going to, again, toss this one off as an anomaly.
How about the fact that the next day, Ben Rice sort of has a similar thing happen in the 3rd inning with 1st and 2nd 2 outs and Jazz Chisholm up. So you had 2 egregious base running decisions that short-circuited potential rallies.
Another young player. If this was like last year where veteran guys were making dumb mistakes, you'd be concerned about it. But a young player making a boneheaded mistake, you hate to see it, and I hate to just dismiss it, but I'm going to dismiss it.
It's too much there over the course of 3 days to dismiss, especially Dominguez.
Too much?
Dominguez,
it was 2 instances.
You got to pay attention.
But hold on. Before you continue, there are some, and I purposely left this out, but I will bring it up because I want to be fair.
Right.
There are some who are including Anthony Volpe's caught stealing from Friday as an egregious base running decision. I disagree with that.
Right.
I did not think that was a bad base running decision. I know Aaron Boone got very testy with the media after the game. I have to admit, I'm actually on Aaron Boone's side. We'll get more into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do not lump the Volpe caught stealing on Friday with the Dominguez and the Rice boneheads from Saturday and Sunday.
Because those were boneheaded. Whereas Volpe's was, he got caught.
Right. And if you swipe it, you hit a sack fly.
Right.
We'll get to that in a second. But Dominguez, pay attention, dude. You're not in your first week of the year here. This is June. Many of us want you to play more. There is no excuse at the major league level. I don't care how old you are, to basically not be aware of count out situations when you're on the base paths. That was unexcusable and brutal. And if the team didn't have fundamental,
what are you going to do? Not play him?
It's not that not play him. Play him.
What are you going to do?
Here's the issue. We went to this last year, the fundamental stuff that came back to bite him. I wanted that hammered home in spring training. If this team needs a re-hammering home in the middle of June right now, hey, when you're going around hitting the cage, it's not about everybody hitting home runs. Let's work on some things. It's a base. You can't let that rear its ugly head. It was a year ago today that the Red Sox stole 9 bases on the Yankees. Okay, and that was when everybody started to pique their interest. I know it's a little different, but the fundamentals of Yankee baseball. And the Yankees, from that point forward, versus Boston the rest of the year, went 44-45 the rest of the regular season. We're lucky to make the World Series, but we kept coming back to that weekend and all the fundamentals that surrounded it. This cannot be the beginning. This team hasn't padded enough of the fundamentals getting in the way of sloppy baseball the rest of the year. Work on it.
Yeah, I think the fact that there were 2, and they were back-to-back, and they were both egregious decisions, would give me a little bit of a level of, is this coming back? Are we going to start to see the ugly, dumb baseball from a year ago return its ugly head?
I think if it was over a wider span and you'd seen more than a couple of instances, so it was 6 or 7 times over a month, I'd be worried about it. This was it was a crappy weekend. Obviously.
Oh, I get you.
Obviously, because both teams got swept.
And you know what made it worse? Here's the reality. It goes back to point one with the Yankees. They didn't hit.
Yeah.
Right.
If they managed to score more than 4 runs in 3 games, then maybe we're not going over base running decisions with a fine-tooth comb.
And Ben Rice got his punishment anyway. Because is there any more embarrassing moment for you as a struggling hitter than DJ LeMahieu being called upon to pinch hit for you in a Yankee Red Sox game? That happened too.
Now, jump back to the Mets. There's another thing that really did the Mets in over the weekend. The pitching is going to get a lot of the attention. Paul Blackburn's going to get a lot of the attention. Tyler McGill is going to get a lot of the attention. The New York Mets had 7 plate appearances with the bases loaded, combining Friday and Sunday. They lacked the big hit. And this has been a problem all season long.
Right.
The Mets' inability to consistently hit with runners in scoring position. If you look at this weekend that they just had against the Tampa Bay Rays and you combine their numbers with runners in scoring position, they were 4 for 27. If you go back to the final 2 games of the Washington series, they were 2 for 15. And this is not new. The New York Mets OPS with runners in scoring position is 20th. Now, their overall OPS is 5th.
Right.
So their lack of big hits does not fit who they are as an offense. And all year long, Tiki, I have said, whether it's here or on the Rico, I'm not concerned because they're better than this.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned because they're better than this.
But
At
are they?
what point do you start to say, hey, the sample size is half a season? They're just not good with hitting and runners and scoring position.
Yeah, and it's weird because there was a moment early in the season where you really worried about this. They were horrendous with, what were they hitting, 180 or something? Less than that, actually, with runners in scoring position. And now, over these last 2 series, as you just described, they're 6 for 41 with runners in scoring position. That's just, you can't win that way.
It's brutal.
It's brutal, yet somehow they still have one of the best records in baseball.
But the reason they have one of the best records in baseball, follow it back to point one on the Mets,
was pitching.
is that they've pitched out of their minds. No one expects the pitching to keep that pace. They're not finishing the year with a sub-3 ERA. That's not going to happen. So for the Mets to maintain this pace, to win the National League East, to be the team we envision that they can be, the offense, specifically hitting with runners in scoring position, needs to be better.
Right, so the pitching, you kind of could have expected to come back towards where it is right now. It's the hitting, especially with runners in scoring position, that really concerns you. So of the 2 issues, the latter, meaning this one, the hitting, is the one that's the more terminal, it feels like.
Well, it's the most important aspect of their team.
Yes.
Like, to me, it is not realistic to expect their pitching to continue at the level that it's been through the first 70-plus games of the season. They need their offense to be what it can be. Now, as I sit here almost at the halfway point, I try to answer the question, why do they suck with runners in scoring position? And I admit, there's a lot of bad luck involved. I have to admit that. Like, there are screaming line drives that happen to be right at guys.
Right.
I'd be lying if I ignored that. But the sample size is big enough where you say, all right, enough's enough. You know, Pete Alonso struck out with the bases loaded in a huge spot on Sunday as well as Friday. He needs to be better, even though he's had a great year all year. Guys need to be better. So my level of concern around the Mets is more so, if they're going to be what they've been through the first half of the season, it's time for the offense to live up to the billing that we all had coming into the year.
Right.
And that involves consistently getting big hits, something they did not do this weekend. I get they gave up 24 runs. They gave up a lot of runs. But you know what? It's not illegal to win a game 10-9. It's not illegal to win a game 9-8. And honestly, looking at Friday and Saturday, they left opportunities out there. So as pissed off as one can be about the pitching, I look at the offense and say, hey, it's time for you guys to hold up your end of the bargain.
Right.
So I think the Yankees and the Mets were filled with things that are just baseball. It happens. You're not going to win every series. But they're also filled with those tiny little nuggets of,
Yeah, keep your eye out for this. This is something you might have to worry about in the long term. And honestly, it sounds the same for both. You got to hit. You got to hit in critical moments.
So, on Friday, Sean and I almost came to blows on which New York team was better. As we sit here on this Monday afternoon, who had a more concerning weekend? I put that poll out last night. I'll give you the results in a few minutes, plus we'll answer it. And we'll hear from you. 888-808-1019. The Mets get swept at home by Tampa. The Yankees get swept on the road in Boston. Now, the saving grace in the Yankee sweep is that a few hours after the Yankees got swept by the Red Sox and Garrett Cole's father hit another home run against the Yankees, Garrett Cole's dad got shipped out, and he's going to San Francisco.
Get those Garrett Cole Cy Young bets in now for next year.
We'll give you our thoughts on the impact of that move, if the Mets should have been involved in that move, and why Yankee fans better take a deep breath and not celebrate the move. Because there's something all you guys are missing about the negative towards Rafael Devers being traded away from the Boston Red Sox.